Now that, Mr. Cullen, is what you call a thumbnail. We got Cullen in space. How are you tonight, John?
I'm excited. I'm excited. This is a big one. We've got an epic show.
We're on a
This is
little bit
major.
of a
This
tighter
is major.
lens today on you, no?
Indeed. I'm not surprised that you noticed, um, with your background in cinematography and what have you. I switched out the camera.
Oh,
So yeah, some of the people in the audience have asked us to do like an appendix show or something like a show to talk about behind the scenes, like what kind of gear do we use to do podcasts. I've had that
uh-huh.
request a number of times,
Yeah.
and I swapped out my camera this week. I was using the Sony A6400. I'm not sponsored by Sony in any way, shape, or form, and you can tell by the outfit. Yeah.
Sony are
So
dicks, so you're better off.
what do you mean? I would love to have Sony PlayStation 5
No,
supporting the show and the Grand
no.
Theft Auto. No, no,
Oh,
you don't
well,
want
that would
them.
be fun and everything, but
Couple million a year.
I don't know.
You're
Did
not
I
interested.
tell you about when Sony asked 21st Century 3D to design a 3D camera for them and how they screwed me out of $250,000? And the fat asshole Pete Luday, former Sony now fired loser, basically called me into a meeting and said, "Well, you might want to sue us. Good luck with that."
I
And I
remember
was
this.
like,
Yeah. You did tell me this. I remember it's a James Cameron story that stands out for me because of the South Park song "How Low Can He Go." So the
"Well, but James
combination of
Cameron
your
was nice to me when I met him."
Yeah, but he kind of stole your 3D stuff. I mean,
No.
he could have taken you along for Avatar and all that stuff. I mean,
No,
he could have shown.
that was a
No,
whole thing with a different guy, Vince Pace, who there were a number of people who worked very hard to prevent me from ever getting in front of James Cameron in a meaningful way and tried to undercut me. What happened was we got hired to do the New York unit on Metallica Through the Never, and this company that was co-owned by James Cameron flipped out because I think they realized that if people in Hollywood could see 21st Century 3D's work compared to theirs, they'd say, wait a minute, why are we paying these guys millions of dollars when this looks better and costs less? But stuff like that is happening all the time, John. I don't want to get too into my 3D war stories. We've got unprecedented stuff unfolding before our eyes. We've got this special counsel, David Weiss, who has been, just anointed today, seems quite clearly to be a lawfare practitioner. Hunter Biden is looking like he's going to be in a lot of trouble. I just noticed walking around New York City today, we've got COVID tents popping up again. And, you and I aren't lawyers, so sharing our opinions about what's going to happen with impeachment, indictment, and Hunter Biden, Trump, Judge Chutkin coming out with all this stuff. I don't know. But we're going to talk today, John, about viruses, something that you have gained a tremendous amount of information about. You've been playing in the sort of the deep end of the pool with some of these epidemiologists and people from all over the place. And, I have a feeling, John, if we got some fancy scientist on here and said, hey, do viruses come from space? They'd say, no, that's ridiculous. That's a conspiracy theory. But then you might say, well, fancy scientist, where do viruses come from? And they would tell you nobody knows. So how do they know it didn't come from space?
exactly. Now, I'm not saying they come from space. Again, I just like the costume, and if it's an opportunity to go look for something, I say let's gear up and go for a spacewalk.
Hey,
But in all seriousness, what you guys are going to learn about tonight and is something called astrovirology. And you may
what?
not have known, yeah, you may not have known that this is a real thing,
Wow.
but that's what we do here is we shed light on things that most people don't know a whole lot about, right? So, and let me give you a good example because you and I talked about this quite some time ago. We were talking about the UFO phenomenon and all the stuff that was going on with the UFOs, and we were talking about gravity. And I said that we just discovered gravity waves recently. We just they were predicted, but we have these gravity wave sensors, and we just discovered gravity recently. And on the show, I talked about how we figured out Marconi and these guys figured out how to modulate electromagnetic radiation. And we do something called amplitude modulation, which is AM radio. And then we figured out how to do something called FM modulation, which is frequency modulation.
Frequency modulation, yeah.
Right. So we
They
got
have
AM
different
radio and
properties
FM.
too.
Right. One's amplitude modulation, one's frequency modulation.
Well, but like
both...
in other words, AM signals, I think, travel along the curvature of the Earth, and FM signals project out forever.
Because they have these different properties.
Right.
So in one case, you're modulating the amplitude of the wave itself, but the frequency of the wave stays the same. And in the case of frequency modulation, the frequency of the wave is what's changing in a very tight band. And this is how we have FM and AM. And it's how we have walkie-talkies and television over the air, the way it used to be back before we had cable and all that. Well, one of the things we started talking about on the show was gravity modulation. Now that we know that gravity travels in waves, we need to figure out how to modulate it. And just a week or two ago, you found a patent on a gravity modulation device that you were showing me, right? You found this patent. And you shared it with me in email. I don't know if you can find it on your computer real quick to show the audience, but this is one of the things that I've kind of learned through this pandemic. Nobody knows a damn thing. Everybody's full of it. All these so-called experts and what have you. Where are they? Where's Marion Koopmans right now? Where's Helen Branswell from Stat News? I keep posting that.
Is this it? Peak storage gravitational wave generator? Spanish? Because we had the guy's name before, and I'm forgetting it now.
I think you might. I think that might be it. A gravitational wave generator. I mean, again, if we can modulate gravity, that appears to be that's the hot sauce. That's what you want to be able to do.
Gravitational wave generator. This guy has, but here we go.
And it was a patent, and you showed it to me, and it was military oriented, the patent. Yeah, look at this. Canada. Yeah. All right. So the notion here is, when we go through COVID and you get all these experts and everybody's talking about the origin of COVID and bats and raccoon dogs and all this monkey business, and did it come from here, did it come from there, all this stuff, nobody can agree. And you and I are looking at death certificates. We're counting death certificates, right? So we're not looking at stuff that's wishy-washy. We're like in the morgue, counting tables in the morgue.
Well, not
a lot of wiggle room here, right? I mean, there's not a lot of play when we're counting dead bodies. And the people who do try and explain this phenomenon, who we've looked at before on the show, like some of these doctors and professors who say, oh, well, here's what happened with influenza and people stopped going to get tested. And they come up with these nonsense. And you start realizing
this is just
nobody knows what they're talking about. Right. Nobody knows what they're talking about except for Dr. Judy, right? So we had Dr. Judy on the show last week, who's mind-blowing to have on the show, and to hear the stuff that she was sharing with us 3 years ago coming true from other observations, right? Scientists from MIT now are finding the stuff she told us they were going to find. So to me, that's fascinating. And it was a real privilege to have her back on the show last week. So thanks again for extending the invitation to her. That was great. So
before we continue, I want to make sure that if people haven't seen that show from last week, very important that they check it out. It was hilarious when Dr. Judy said that Andrew Kaufman is an idiot. Oh, and also I've added back we had an interview with Charles with Dr. Judy, and that I've added to Odyssey, because right after we did our show, I wanted people to have an opportunity to see that. So that was really very good. One other thing, when you're talking about these gravitational waves, it's interesting because, I think there was a pretty long-standing debate or trying to gain the understanding of light. And light is understood as both a particle and a wave. And it's interesting because I have always, not always, but I've been thinking about, this whole relationship between magnetism and electricity. Like if you break a magnetic field, with another magnet, it generates electricity. And if you're driving an electric car, it does this thing called regenerative braking, where it slows down by reversing that and creating electricity from the momentum of the car to save power. So I've always wondered why we have not yet understood this relationship, between gravity and something. But when you're talking about waves, it makes me think about something else from my 3D days. I was the first person to implement a quarter wave retarder. And this thing here shows you basically how it works. It's got to do with polarized light and turning the wave into a circular pattern so that the polarization is no longer affected. It really has a huge impact on the image quality in a 3D beam splitter. It's complicated stuff that I really don't understand, but when I saw what it did, I implemented this in the system.
You had to have it, right?
Well,
Right.
it's
That's
become
awesome.
the international standard.
I want to understand it. I want to talk about circular polarizers and stuff like that with you, and understand the difference between quarter wave and half wave plate polarization, because it's very cool. That's very cool.
But if this stuff works with light, maybe if they can start to understand gravity, maybe these things that defy gravity, it's like any technology. Once they figure it out, it's like, holy cow, magic.
Exactly. So with that as sort of a base, I want to share with our YouTube audience just a couple slides before we go to the patron only show. Patron only, we've got a bunch of videos that are going to blow you guys away. But I want to share with you just a couple things in the YouTube portion to kind of set up what it's going to look like when we go patron only. And tonight's going to be another epic show. The show last week with Dr. Judy, I think, was huge. 2 hours long or something.
Oh, yeah.
Over 2 hours. So, I think people are getting their $5 worth for sure, right? $5 a month. $1.25 a show.
Oh, one other thing. So I want to address John's viewers on patreon.com/IamJohnCullen and subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen. John and I have been working on a little bit of a technical snafu where it seems when our live streams for the sponsors go longer than an hour, viewers on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, we're getting cut off after an hour. Now, John has been in communication with technical support for Patreon. And as much as I love our sponsors who sponsor us on Patreon, I'm disappointed in their tech support, John. I think maybe like Twitter 1.0, Patreon is busy employing maybe about 150 people more than they need. I think they have about 160 employees. And I believe I have figured out the problem, and that's nothing new. Figuring out technical problems for software companies before they figure them out is sort of my second favorite thing to do. But people are going to be able to tune in to subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen and patreon.com/IamJohnCullen. And I am very confident we've got this problem licked. So my apologies to John's viewers, but today it's going to be no problem. And the problem didn't exist on playback. Is that right, John?
Correct. It doesn't happen on playback. It's for people who are watching the live patron only show streaming, and it just stopped at an hour. So we think we figured it out. We're going to find out tonight. So for those of your patrons, set your timer. We've got over an hour of content. So
I'm very confident we have it solved. No thanks to Patreon.
I think so.
But thanks to our viewers.
All right, let's show it.
Yeah.
Let's show everybody some slides.
Here we go.
Let's see. What do we got here?
WHO.
All right, so again, just a public service announcement that the WHO declared the public emergency over back in May, and the CDC stopped tracking data in June. So all that data that I was collecting about the states and how many cases and how many deaths per state?
Yeah.
They don't even track that anymore. They stopped doing that June 28th. Yeah. So it's hard. So when we're hearing that there's more and more cases now, but the CDC stopped tracking it. So I don't know. What am I supposed to tell you? I'm not in charge of this thing. Maybe when Bobby Kennedy starts running things, I'll be in charge. All right, let's go to the next thing. Cockpit audio released.
From what?
So something happened a couple months ago, right? So this was 5 months ago. Some things happened. I sent you 2 links. These are news reports from ABC News of remember when we shut down the balloon?
Yeah.
Do you remember that there was other things that we were shooting at besides balloons? Do you remember that?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. I thought that balloon thing was stupid, and right away you identified it from a U.S. company, so I stopped paying attention to it, other than laughing at it with your funny images.
All right, so
But
let's
what happened?
jump ahead. Let's jump ahead to slide number 6 in my deck. Jump ahead to slide number 6. We'll come back
Oh,
in a second to the other two.
oh,
So go to slide number 6 in my deck. Keep
this
going with Joe.
for
Yeah.
UFOs? What?
There you go. There you
Who?
go. So this was going on 5 months ago. And
Shooting
today
UFOs.
everybody's right. And today everybody's worried that the special counsel was the same guy from Delaware. And it's like, guys, we're shooting down UFOs and you're worried about the special counsel for the crackhead? I'm
But
not
it
that
just
worried
looks
about
like
the
a
special.
balloon.
No, they show the picture of the shoot down of the balloon because that's exactly what they want everybody to say. Well, that looks like a balloon, Martha. And we move on and we go shopping to Walmart, and we change the subject. We were shooting down all kinds of stuff. Now I sent you 2 links in email, right? So there should be 2
Yeah.
YouTube links that are queued up. Let's see. What do we got
Look,
here?
this is UFO shoot down over Canada and Alaska.
And whose channel is that? That is what channel?
WFAA.
All
It
right.
looks like
So
a
that's
video
the
game of F-35s. That's not real photography of those planes flying. Maybe that is.
No, I mean, obviously they didn't send up a film crew to film this happening, Jason. Right? So that's not what, right?
Just
So
show you an animation.
right? They didn't just happen to have the HBO guys were sitting around and say, "Hey, yeah, can we tag along? We'll film this."
Just pretend we shot it.
All right. So the point is, 5 months ago, we were sending F-35s into Canada, shooting at things that were not balloons. Well, what the hell is this all about? So you want to start this over? I think it's okay since this is from the FAA. I think we're allowed to put it's like public service announcement.
It's the WFAA. That's the TV station, Channel 8. So we're not going to.
Oh, okay, Channel 8. So we can't play that? No.
No.
We're not allowed to play that. All right, what was the other link I sent? The other link might have been Congress. Might have been Nancy Mace in Congress, the second link I sent.
I like Nancy Mace. Congress is doing great things. I think we would not know. This is radar images.
Okay, so the radar images. So this is from the. This is kind of an exclusive feed from CBS in Las Vegas, and the net of this here is that George Knapp was able to get. So he was able to get footage from the cockpit. I think it's either the Nimitz or the Omaha, and you see the radar screen. And so this is very, it doesn't get more compelling than this. Yep. And so we've seen all the footage of the Tic Tac and everything, but we've never actually seen someone take a camera and film the radar screen from the command center on the ship.
Wouldn't they get pissed off at the person doing that? Are you allowed to just film radar screens?
It seems that since the whole Dave Fravor thing coming forward, it seems that they're getting less pissed off because it's happening everywhere. This is sort of the issue here, is that this is going on all over the place. And once you start looking and you start reading about it, it happened a couple weeks ago. I mean, the Navy and the Air Force that are up there training, the guys that fly out of the Air Force bases and Navy bases who are training, they're seeing this stuff constantly.
Oh, it just went in the water. But wait a second, though.
Right.
Isn't it a little crazy to just start? I mean, if something is extraterrestrial and we don't know what it is, you're just going to blow it up?
Well, that's why we're bringing this up in the show is, this is classic, native living on the island with spear type behavior, right? So you see somebody approach and let's kill it, right? So it's the first thing we're going to do is, the Arnold Schwarzenegger, if it bleeds, we can kill it, right? So let's kill it first. and then we'll figure out if they're friendly, right? So we don't know who they are or what they're doing. Obviously, the military's told us that already. They're like, oh, we don't know what this stuff is. So let's kill it.
Right.
So let's kill it. Let's shoot at it. That's a good idea. So we're going to look at some footage. Some of the footage that I sent you in that folder is footage from Congress. So NASA presented footage from some of the drone, and we've looked at this on the show before. Now, this radar feed that you're looking at right now, at one point you're going to see 9 objects on the screen, and the Nimitz is the ship in the center. And these guys, so they've got guys out flying in their jets, and then the guys who are on the Nimitz are tracking these objects on radar. And at one point you'll see about 9 objects. There you go. Hit pause on the video.
That's a lot of objects. Whoops.
Yeah, go back 5 seconds. All right. So this is the radar from the Nimitz.
But these are things on the water, aren't they?
No, these are airborne objects, and they're tracking all of them. This was the Dave Fravor, San Diego incident. So they're tracking, I believe. So they're tracking all these objects, and George Knapp was able to get this footage. And Jeremy Corbell, this is a disaster, I think.
Why?
He ruins the credibility. I don't understand how he gets in the midst of all this stuff all the time. But when you look at this,
sitting next to Clapper or something I was surprised by that. It
looked like Clapper. I mean, I don't know if it was Clapper. I looked for him. If it wasn't, it's his doppelganger.
Yeah.
But the net of this is we have the footage of the Tic Tacs. Now we have the radar feed. And this has been what's missing. And this is what Jeremy Corbell says. And it's true. It's just he's so annoying. I don't want the audience to have to experience that. So, all right. So here we go. So we've
John?
Back in the deck.
Oh.
So I want to go back.
We lost you for a second. To what with the deck?
What I want to do is go back to the presentation in the deck.
Yeah.
And I want you to jump forward to the slide that says NASA, and it shows a NASA guy floating around in the spacesuit. There you go. So this is important. And before we go patron only, again, this is a public service announcement. If any of you guys are thinking of buying tickets on that Virgin Galactic or whatever, it seems that herpes flares up when you go into space.
What?
And so this is, and now, we'll joke around about this a little bit, right? Remember Las Vegas, right?
But that is a virus, isn't it?
It's not just a virus. Herpes is the oldest virus we know of.
How do they know that?
How? Genetic, whatever they do with genetics, they figure it out. And they say this thing's 600 million years old. So herpes simplex is about 600 million years old. And I believe it's the oldest virus that we know of on Earth. And many people have it in them, and it just is in them. And it doesn't cause anything, and because you got infected when you were 7 years old, and your body figured out how to keep it at bay. And we talked about this with Dr. Judy last week, right? So whether or not a virus expresses itself or does not express itself, right?
Now, hang on.
Like zoster virus, right?
Hang on.
Yeah.
Because here we have a challenge.
What's the challenge?
Internet says nudiviruses primarily affect insects and marine arthropods, date back to 310 million years ago, making it the oldest known and scariest looking virus. Maybe it's just because it's insects, maybe human viruses.
Now type in herpes. How old is herpes simplex? How old is herpes simplex? And let's see what we get.
5,000 years ago.
Now, that's the common ancestor. You can't just go to the first.
Here's the World Health Organization. 3.7 billion people under the age of 50, 67% globally have herpes simplex virus type 1. That's like even if you just bite your lip, sometimes that thing comes out. And mild symptoms, I don't know. It doesn't really say. Okay, so it's old.
So it's an old virus. It's been around a long time. The point is, what happens to it when you go to space? What happens to the virus?
It expresses itself.
What? Yeah, isn't that weird?
Well,
So
maybe
what
you're
is the article?
dehydrated.
The article with the astronaut. Now let's go to the next slide. Jump ahead 3 slides to the
Okay.
yellow one. There you
This?
go. There's more viruses than stars in the universe.
That's a lot.
More viruses than stars in the universe? That's a lot of viruses on planet Earth. That's in the
Statements like this.
non-million.
How have they counted the stars? This is the type of thing where if you were like, okay, Mr. Scientist, how the hell do you know this? They'd be like,
no, because we've
next question.
estimated how many galaxies there are and how many stars there are in each galaxy. And
Let me do this.
Guys do the math.
Because we've hit our hard stop here, and we're going to continue this conversation.
You have to see the next slide. Yeah, because the next slide sets it up. Because the next slide makes it so that we're not crazy.
Here we go.
All right, so the hunt for viruses in space is real.
Nice.
This isn't my idea. This is real. This is astrovirology. And what we're going to look at is who's looking, where they're looking, what have they found?
Wow.
Where do viruses really come from, maybe? And that's what we're going to get into, is these papers that, again, it's like, it's fascinating when you come up with this idea and then you find out there's a whole bunch of people already working on it. It's like,
yep.
Oh, wow. It's like the gravity thing. That's why I brought up the whole, somebody actually patented this thing already, right? You and I were talking about it on the show, and some guy's already got a patent. So same thing here. I talk about it jokingly on Twitter with my videos, and there's a whole bunch of people actually doing this.
Amazing. But it makes sense. I mean, if a meteor hits the Earth and something's on it, it's microscopic, and now it's like...
Those are the next 3 articles we're going to look at with our patrons. So that's where they're looking, is in the meteor. The meteors land in the ocean. 77% of the Earth is covered with water. Most of the meteors land in the ocean. The ocean is filled with so many viruses. It's more than all the stars in the universe.
Wow.
In fact, it's like 100 million.
Well, John, we've got a break, though, because people are going to be able to join us on the sponsor-exclusive segment. We're going to get into this topic that I never even heard about before today, astrovirology, viruses from space. Not crazy, but actually amazing. Join us, please, on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We will be right back. Stay with us. Become a sponsor if you aren't already. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. Watch out for